Hello there and welcome to Business Nigeria, where we bring you the latest happenings in the world of business across the nation. I am Tolulokpe Ogunjobi. Welcome. Thank you for staying with us. Now, a week-long conference on the future of banking and finance opens in Lagos today. The Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria is hosting the event. Some internationally recognized bankers, economists, administrators, and investors are expected at the occasion. New developments in banking practices and financial administration will take attention at the conference.
I think that right now, banking is undergoing such a profound shift. I mean, I think we're lucky to have people from around the world come to Lagos to discuss it. I mean, the thing is, we've all heard this term fintech, and that talks about the way that different technologies are impacting the banking sector. And every day, we as consumers of banking use it in terms of our mobile money, instant payments, mobile banking, internet banking. So it's fantastic that we're here to be part of it. But it also represents for the banks both an opportunity but also a threat. For the banks that don't keep up, they're not going to be in banking in 5 years. The main thing is that banks are going to have to do really two things. One is they're going to have to become much lower cost by using this technology. So, for example, even today, banking in Nigeria is about 3 to 3.5 times as expensive as in the UK, but it shouldn't be like that, because when you have these technologies, you don't need the physical branches, you don't need the tellers. I think one thing that's very important, I think over the next few years, we're just going to see cash is used less and less. Already in Kenya, I think most of your viewers will be aware of how pervasive M-Pesa is. We've been behind the curve in Nigeria, but I think 10 years from now, we won't have any cash at all. But all of this is going to drive down the cost of banking, so it's going to help to make the economy more efficient.
Andrew Nevin's there. He would be a guest speaker at the event. Now, away from that now, the Central Bank of Nigeria last week suspended its earlier directive on the implementation of cashless policy. In a circular released on Friday, the Apex Bank instructed banks to revert to the old charges and refund customers who had been debited. CBN had earlier announced new charges on deposits and withdrawals above a threshold of 500,000 naira. The Apex Bank had directed banks to charge 5% and 10% for deposits and withdrawals above 40 million naira in the corporate category. Director of Banks and Payments System Department, Dikpo Fatokun, said the existing policy before the announcement of the new policy shall remain in place in Lagos, Ogun, Kano, Abia, Anambra, Rivers State, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. President of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators in Nigeria, Aminu Gwadabe, says the efforts by the Central Bank of Nigeria to stabilize the forex market is paying off.
Are in the right place, because you see the licensed Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria have a better networking. We are about 3,200 members. The highest bank that have about 1,000 branches is the, I think, First Bank. So in terms of networking, we are better. In terms of convenience, we are also faster, because most of these banks, their documentation, their timing takes time, unlike the Bureau de Change. So the partnership that CBN created in terms of injecting liquidity into the BDC subsector is one of the magic that have seen the growth of the Naira. So, and it should be encouraged, because last week, the central bank, through the IMTO's window, that's International Money Transfer Operators, have also given the BDC about $40,000 each per week. And we have seen the impact already. Dollar came down from 420 to about 375 yesterday as at close of business.
Well, indeed, the Naira is actually firming up against the dollar. Let's see how sustainable this policy would be. With me in the studio is the market analyst, Mukhtar Mohammed. Thank you very much, Mukhtar, for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure being with you here.
The Central Bank suspending charges on large withdrawals. What do you make of this new policy?
I think we are going back to the inconsistency in policy from CBN. Just when you're listening to the speaker that will be speaking in the financial sector, banking and financial sector, he was talking about why technology is the in thing, why you don't have to open so many branches, and why everybody's going cashless. So if I wonder why everybody's going cashless, and CBN is saying we should come back to what we thought should suppose a good formula that's working in Lagos. It came as a shock. It said the inconsistency in policy, and that is not good for international investors, especially. They will see that even as little as cashless policy, we cannot even hold our firm ground. And the CBN have not given any statement to say these are the reasons why we don't want cashless policy to take up in some of the states.
Indeed, it's going to be retained in the other states, Lagos, that they're already operating, Ogun, Kano, Abia, Anambra. So what they are saying is it's not going to exceed the states and not going to get to other states, because we're supposed to start the cashless policy in other states. That's according to them before now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, all this while, these other states like Lagos, Ogun, and other states that you just mentioned have started the cashless policy for over 3 years. So what do the other states need to start this cashless policy that the government the CBN have not been able to put in place? I think that's my challenge with the CBN. They should have been able to, they have a long time, they have about 3 years period. When you talk about financial sector stability, it needs to be a holistic thing. Right from day one, we expected all to go to start off like that, but they said because of logistic problem, infrastructural problem, which should have been overcome by now, because it doesn't take you 3 years to begin to put up your logistic into place. You have the various money bank and companies that are involved in all these transactions, like MasterCard, InterSwitch. Are we saying that they are also not prepared to begin to handle such a transaction like this?
I think infrastructure, which you've mentioned, technological challenges are also part of this issues. Nigerians have had some challenges in the process of running this cashless policy. So maybe the central bank is just looking inwards and saying, let's put our house in order before we implement in other states.
No policy can always be generally accepted by all. When we came out with the BVN policy, people said, no, it will not work. Some people went to court to challenge it. Now we see how BVN is helping the government even in recovery of money. So the same thing with the cashless policy. The cashless policy should be a drive of this government also to begin to track anti-corruption measures. It should be another place that the government could use to begin to track the anti-corruption fight. Because when it comes cashless, that means it must go through the system. And you begin to see where it's moving from one place to another. And that will help in the fight against corruption. So for me, it's not just a slap to the bank, it's even a slap to the fight against corruption. Because most of the transactions, most of the loot that are being discovered now is either through the use of BVM or through the movement of cash from one point to another. So we need to stop that. Then if we stop that, then we begin to know how much we have in the system. And again, market, it's more expensive to move cash from one point to another. It costs the CBN a lot of money. So I would say we're still going to be, CBN is going to be taking up overhead costs always, because they want to favor some people, some states are not ready. So I think CBN should look at it. I mean, you take up, everything doesn't have to be perfect to take up. Even in Lagos today, we still have the challenges sometimes when you do a transaction, it doesn't go through. But you can't say because of that you're going to shut down or do the transaction. And it is good for security reasons, because the man that is traveling from the east don't have to come with cash now. He just come and he just do it from a network. And all the network mobile telecommunication companies are now involved in it. Bankers are now involved in it. So there's a lot of synergy. So can't we just drive this to other states?
Indeed, as interesting as you analyze it now, there are also lots of challenges. People will also tell you bitter experiences they faced with using online transactions. I know of lots of people that have had lots of experiences. So I think lots to need. Then another thing I want to ask you is the order for some banks to refund. Are you sure these banks are going to comply, refunding to customers?
Look, when CBN gives an instruction and the banks are obliged they will always respect the instruction. The challenge is always with the customers. Some customers, when this bank does not do what they said they should do, the customers never go back there to tell them that, look, I need, and there's a window of complaint that you can report from to CBN and say, look, after your circular came in, this bank was supposed to be within 48 hours, you see that they will return your money. I think customers of banks should know that they are the king. So whenever policy comes that affect the amount, they should be able to tell CBN, go to the bank, and if the bank refuses to comply, they should write CBN. Just go to CBN website, there's a complaint network, then you just put your complaint.
I think there needs to be a proper, there should be a synergy between the bankers, the bankers here and customers. There should be a better relationship. Many people complain of the kind of hostile relationship they get. That's why many people avoid even going into the banking premises. Looking at this, what do you think?
I think it's not arguing well for the bank, because that means that the bank will not be able to make money. That's why they said now. They said only 3% of Nigerians are bankable. So the bank needs a lot of work to do. And if they begin to attract most of these Nigerians that are not coming to the banks, then they will begin to have money to do other things. They will begin to be able to give long-term loan that will really become to real-time banking compared to what we have now.
Indeed, indeed. Well, now we're still with Mukhtar. And IMF, that's International Monetary Fund, has called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to float the Naira. Well, we'll talk more on this later after this break. Stay with us on Business Nigeria. Glad to have you back. Now the Nigerian government has again restated its resolve to clamp down on tax evaders. Speaking at a press briefing to close the 2017 World Bank Spring meetings, Minister of Finance Kemi Adeosun lamented that only 13 million Nigerians pay taxes and 12.5 million out of them pay directly from source. She also disclosed that the World Bank would work closely with the Nigerian government to kick off the country's housing project.
We don't intend at this stage to introduce new taxes, because actually the taxes we have are quite adequate. The problem, as you've said, is enforcement. Now, if you're able to get away without paying tax, majority of people will. The job of government is to make sure it is very difficult to evade tax. Now, we've already started that job with gathering data, because to tax people, you must know how much they have. When you don't have the data, then it's guesswork. The other thing is there's going to be much better cooperation from the international community, and that's one of the things we've been discussing here. Another project that we discussed with them extensively was the housing project. That's the Family Homes Fund, which we're piloting within the Ministry of Finance. They have agreed to now work with us to fine-tune that project so that it can attract local funding and international funding. And affordable housing for us is part of the fight against corruption.
Meanwhile, International Monetary Fund calls on the Central Bank of Nigeria to float the Naira. But the Apex Bank rejected the call, noting that it had made no sense for the country to introduce a policy that will kill Nigerians. CBN's Acting Director of Corporate Communications, Isaac Okorafor, says there is no country that floats its currency by just leaving it to the dictates of the market. Mukhtar, it's back to you now. The IMF has come again to say we should float the Naira. They've been calls, devaluation and all of that even before now. Now they've outrightly said Nigeria float. That's the demand, they want the demand and supply policy to, you know. I don't think this, what do you make of this?
I don't think, the CBN have said it, I don't think it's going to work. No country, like they said, no country float their Naira, their currency 100%. There must be a place whereby the regulators will come in and regulate it. There's no country that have done that. And if you're looking at the people, they tell you the Egyptian experience. Even the Egyptian experience is not 100% floating. I remember for Egyptian to even accept to do what they're doing now, they got loan from the IMF, which was about 12-point-something billion dollars. Nigeria is not doing that. Nigeria is still buoyant, still monitoring their situation. As worse as it was like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, Nigeria even bluntly still refused to float their currency. Now it's even getting better with the oil price is going up. There's no any reason why we should begin to float our currency for now. What I think the CBN should do is to begin to see how they can really attract foreign investors. That is one, and which they are doing, because even a small medium-scale enterprise have been asked that they could even access as high as $40,000. And even then again, they are beginning to think of how to attract foreign investors again. They are saying they are collaborating with the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the Security and Exchange Commission, whereby you could get your dividend in dollars repatriated to you as soon as you want it. So those are policies the CBN is already doing that. It's going to help attract foreign investors, and it's more or less like you have managing your currency. You don't just float your currency, you try to manage your currency. And so they will continue to do that. But when we have a consistent supply, I mean, our reserve is buoyant, the exchange rate, we have been able to diversify. It will not be like we are floating the currency. It will be like it's going to go based on demand and supply. And sometimes CBN will enter to make sure that price stability exists. Remember, for quite a long time, we're having price stability, whereby we're exchanging for 150, 160 at a point for almost 3 to 4 years. So that's part of the policy that CBN is wanting to play. The only thing I say is that we can't keep doing the same thing the same time, always thinking we have a different result. I think what the CBN is doing now should be a short gap measure towards stabilizing the currency. After they are finished stabilizing the currency, I think they should begin to think of how to do damage control, whereby they know that the currency is adequately priced at this amount and make sure they control it to this amount. And now if you look at the economic growth, economic recovery and growth recovery plan, you could see that somehow they said, that's why the IMF may be thinking, because in that document, it was like we are going towards where we can float the Naira. But if you read that document very well, it's not that we outrightly float the Naira. We're going through a process whereby it's going to be between demand and supply.
Interestingly there, now 2 weeks ago, the same Apex Bank gave a window for SMEs to actually encourage them, you know, to be able to bring in produce. Just Friday, again, another circular, following the circular that suspended the cashless system, cashless policy, there's a new window, Investors Export FX window, which has also been introduced. We kind of have lots of windows.
We have a lot of windows. That's why I think our situation is different from what you have in Egypt. Our situation is different because if you look at it and the windows we are operating in, it's more or less like if we are already floating our currencies. So what we need to do is continue to do what we are doing. If you could see that the chairman of the Bureau de Change is saying that you could see that situation, the Naira is beginning to gain its level. You see, the challenge we have there is as long as Nigeria does not take ownership of their own economies, we're leaving our economy in the hands of World Bank, in the hands of IMF. He that paid the piper should dictate the tune. But thank God the Nigerian government is bluntly refusing that. It's not asking IMF for money. It's even talking to World Bank. If you realize, the Nigerian government is not even negotiating with IMF for anything. They're rather looking at the World Bank to get the 30 billion loan to even build on infrastructure that they are working on, because the World Bank still have some loose end, and part of those loose end is still this currency matter.
With the IMF and all of that, they can't be ignored all the same way. We start to take them. No.
We cannot ignore the IMF, and the IMF cannot ignore us.
Yeah, indeed.
So we have to be partner in progress. Look, Nigeria is a bigger market. Nigeria is Africa's largest market in terms of population. Is the largest black nation in the world. We have the population, we have the manpower, we have the resources, we have the market. It's not everything that the IMF should begin to dictate to us, because even the IMF are looking at opportunity to invest in our country. So they don't have to tell us how we want to be. You remember, immediately this government came to power, the IMF president actually visited Nigeria twice. That's to tell you how strategic and how significant we are. So Nigeria, but we didn't take opportunity of that. Remember, this same IMF, this same World Bank, this international organization, at the time that the price of crude was going down to about $35 to $40, they said our Naira should be adequately devalued and adequately priced at $250. Now the price of crude is even at 50-something Naira, and they are still telling us that our Naira is not adequately priced. They said it should be priced between 400. So they have their own barometer that they want to attract investment. They are looking at return on their investment. So we as a country too, we should be looking at our own return at our own investment.
I sincerely, we're running out of time. Now, I just want us to touch on the Minister of Finance. You saw the press briefing there. 13 million Nigerians pay tax, 12.5 million from source. I know we have a tax review policy committee that submitted their recommendations and all of that. How far have we gone with the issues of tax?
When it comes to tax, I believe that the government does not have the act together. Because when you expect people to pay tax, but the challenge we have with Nigeria is that even in the companies that are even paying tax, in the multinationals, you try to drive through the roads to those offices. Those roads are very bad. So what are their money being used for? So the ordinary Nigerian that you are telling him to pay tax, that is even trying to pay tax, the roads are not there, the infrastructure are not there. So people see some tax money, find their hand into politicians, and they use it for their own benefit. So until we begin to see the benefit of what taxpayers' money at work, like what we are seeing in Lagos State, when we begin to see that on the road where we travel, when we begin to see that in our power infrastructure, when we begin to see that in terms of the type of schools that the federal government, are under the federal government, the kind of structure and the type of teachers they have there, then you encourage more Nigerians to begin to pay tax. As it stands now, the government need to do their own homework first before they begin to drag me to pay tax. Most Nigerians, how much do they earn? How many Nigerians are employable? And how many of them are even earning something? And in the times of downtime, like what we have in a research economy, like what happened in Anambra State, there's what we call tax rebate. The government is always thinking of what to take. The government should think of what to give back. Nigeria have given so much that they need the government to give. We have the 50% tax, 50%, is it 15 naira duty stamp?
Duties, yeah.
It's still there. And there are a lot of policy they are bringing out. They are only taking from us. They need to start thinking of what they can give back to the ordinary Nigerian. That's when we begin to see the benefit. In the developed countries where you pay tax, you see how your taxpayers' money has worked. You don't drive your car in a pothole. You drive your car in a pothole, and then your chocks are damaged. Your tires are being punctured by nails all over, and the same person needs to pay tax. Go look at the multinational. Just go to, even look. Let's not go too far. Look at the Apapa, as in which is our seaport. How bad is that road? Those are where money is coming from. So when you look at all these things, you are not encouraged. But I think it's our civic responsibility to pay our tax, which is everybody's civic responsibility. But also it's the responsibility of government to make sure that those taxpayers' money are usually spent and on basic projects that the citizens can see, that will encourage them to pay more tax.
I must thank you for your time, Mukhtar Mohammed. I know it could go on and on, especially when it has to do with the economy. Thank you for joining us on Business Nigeria today.
It's always a pleasure being on TVC.
Thank you. Well, still talking, the International Monetary Fund also advised the Nigerian government as federal government to give more priority to investments in infrastructure so as to address the high level of poverty in Nigeria. The Director of African Department of IMF, Abebe Amzo Selassie, made this call at the media briefing on sub-Saharan Africa economies at the IMF World Bank Spring meetings in Washington, D.C. An economist, Henry Boyo, spoke to us on this.
It is not a secret that we have very serious infrastructural deprivations in all the various sectors, particularly education, health, transportation, marine transportation, I mean the whole gamut of transportation. And we don't require a third person to come and tell us we have these deprivations. But having said so, the reality, of course, is that we are being encouraged to borrow money in order to be able to expand these infrastructural deficits. But the reality, of course, is that we cannot continue to borrow when you already have a burden of paying over 40 naira out of every 100 naira that you earn. That already is very precarious. Consequently, it would be certainly more appropriate.
Finally on the show, crude oil price stayed mixed on Monday due to poor demand from factories in Asia. At the London market, the Brent crude trades at $52 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, price steadies at $50 per barrel. But that's a package for you today on Business Nigeria. Join us another time for more insightful analysis. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you for watching. I leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today.